What up, y'all? This is Patrick Haize, and today I want to talk about the practice of dissolving resistance. Now, this is something that has been super critical and super crucial in my own personal evolution. It's something I'm still working on. It's something I've been working on for a really, really long time. And it's something that ties a lot into presence work. So, this idea of dissolving resistance is not a new idea. It's taught in spiritual traditions across the world. And there's a reason for that. Because resistance to what is, resistance to our reality, is not only an energy drain, but it prevents us from getting those deeper lessons in life. See, the universe or the world works to bring us lessons on a regular basis. And all those things that we resist or that we fight against is basically just prolonging a lesson that is available for us to learn if we're willing to enter into it without resistance and accept the reality and accept the gift that it's offering us in the moment. So what I want to talk about today is my relationship with this practice of dissolving resistance. And I want to talk a little bit more about what resistance is and some of the patterns that we have for resisting things. Because when we think about resistance, oftentimes people may think, well, resistance is, just saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Or in the classic textbook term of resistance, like physically resisting something. But it gets a lot more subtle than that. Because it's not just saying, no, I'm not going to go to dinner with the family member that I don't like, or no, I'm not going to put myself out there or let this person stay with me or whatever it is. Resistance actually moves all the way into the subtlety of our experience, even to things like just mild judgment. Even a judgment of someone else is a resistance. It's a resistance of what is. It's a resistance of who they are. And this resistance, very much like physical resistance, it's a tension that's held within the body. And it's a tension that's held within the psyche also. And that tension has a binding effect. So it kind of sticks you. You're stuck. When you're resisting something, there's a tension and a stuckness that prevents fluidity and grace, just the natural movement of expression. So when we're resisting things, we're resisting our true expression. And it's funny, human beings have this strange pathology where we like to think of a reality that isn't real and compare that reality to the reality that we live in. Now, in some senses, this is extremely beneficial because we can use this to upgrade our reality or create a more ideal living situation, improve our circumstances. But how we use this very often is in a way that is fruitless and just causes more turmoil. And this is by having a situation happen, having a circumstance in place in our reality, and then creating a false circumstance, a fantastical circumstance inside our mind of, say, a preferable reality that is not achievable. And then what we like to do is resist the reality that we're living in while kind of having this false hope or a false desire for this fantasy reality that we've created in our head. An example is like, being stuck in traffic. So you're driving in your car and all of a sudden there's all this traffic. And then you create inside your mind the idea of like no traffic or wanting to be where you're going earlier or not missing your appointment or whatever it is. You create this false reality and then you resist the reality that you're in by creating a false reality. And when you look at it like this, you see that it's just a pathology. It's psychotic, really. Because the only reality that we have in the moment is the reality that we're in. So to resist that reality and kind of hold on to this fantasy and fight the two against each other, all it does is create tension within us and restrict our expression and actually prevent our ability to rise to the occasion and meet the true reality with our best self. So we end up forfeiting our ability to gracefully move through the reality that is, because we're holding on to a reality that doesn't exist, and we're resisting the reality that is. Now, it was actually a prayer that I learned when I was an early teen. I was around the Alcoholics Anonymous and 12-step programs at that time. So when I was an early teen, I was like 13 or 14 years old, there's this prayer that they say in the circles there called the Serenity Prayer. And it makes a lot of sense. It's actually a really powerful prayer for this same dilemma. And it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the key in there is the wisdom to know the difference, because a lot of times we don't even think about it. We're just resisting what is without even thinking about whether we can actually change it or not. But usually it just takes a little bit of discernment to be able to tell whether we can change something or we can't. And if we can't change it in that moment, then it becomes most ideal to accept that. And once we truly accept the moment and roll with it, we realize that our energy opens back up, and then we're able to navigate and gracefully kind of move through the situation in a much more capable way than when we're resisting it. And this, like I said, this gets really subtle because this comes all the way back down to even our judgments. So it's if we're judging somebody else, if we don't like the way someone chews at the dinner table, and or if we don't like the way somebody makes their decisions, the fact that we don't like it is a resistance, and that's why it kind of irks a little bit. And if you feel into your energetic body when you're judging something, it tenses, and you feel that tension. So even to these subtle levels of judgment of other people, or just dislikes that have a charge to them, a dislike of food or a song or something like that. If it has a charge to it, that charge is a resisting charge that constricts us. And so as long as we have those judgments, they're a kind of energy drain. But it's not so much a drain as it more is taking our energy and using it against ourselves. It's like pushing your hands together on both sides. It takes a lot of energy just to kind of like keep it in one place. And that's what resistance does to us. And it's surprising, actually, how many resistances that are subtle that we have going on a regular basis that oftentimes we're not even aware of. So as we're walking down the street, we're going somewhere, taking the bus or getting an Uber, and there's different billboards or there's different people that we see, and there are all these micro judgments that we've developed over our lives that usually don't even reach the surface of our conscious mind because we don't give it enough time to analyze anymore. But these resistances still create that resistance feeling of tension within our body. And this is what oftentimes people would then describe as being depressed or having no motivation to do anything. Because when we have so many of these resistances within us, and we can be triggered by so many different little things in our reality, it can create this stagnance that doesn't really reach the conscious level of our awareness. It's just kind of like an aura that sits within our field of restriction. And this resistance prevents so many things from manifesting, especially those gifts that are within us that we want to bring forward into the world. So one of the ways that I've learned how to dissolve resistance in myself, in my reality, and this is a practice I'm still working on, but one of the keys that has been really powerful for me in dissolving a lot of the resistance that I've held in my life is coming to the belief and the understanding that the world is here to serve me, that life is here to work in my favor, that the universe is on my side, and that the circumstances and the situations that I find myself in on a day-to-day basis are intelligently designed in order to help me evolve as a person and help me grow. Now that may seem a little pie in the sky and superficial or maybe even delusional to come to that conclusion. But I use logic to come to this conclusion so I can truly believe it. And whether it's ultimately true or not, I believe it is, but whether it's ultimately true or not from a scientific perspective becomes somewhat irrelevant when you can see the benefit of taking this perspective and how it brings real solution and benefit to your everyday life. Now, the way that I use logic to reinforce this belief is through optimistic hindsight. So I think back on my life. I think back on all those tough things that happened, all those difficult situations, and then all the lessons that I learned from all those difficult situations. Because every single hardship that I've been through has shaped my character and built more resilience in me. It's given me more power. It's helped me learn more about the world, learn more about myself, and it's taught me to bring more current, more energy through. Now, if you look at the difference between somebody that had the same hardship as someone else, but became successful versus the other person not making it through that hardship, you'll see that how they identify with the hardship is completely different. The successful person identifies with that hardship as a valuable lesson that empowered them because they learned something from it. While the person that didn't create success or was still stuck in a rut used that same hardship as an excuse. So any hardship we've been through can either be a lesson, it can be something that boosts us, or it can be an excuse. It can be a reason why we weren't able to boost ourselves. So it's really all about how we relate to that hardship. Now, the idea of dissolving resistance in the moment is closing the gap between the moment in which we start experiencing the hardship and the time in which we learn the lesson from the hardship. So it's basically saying, when we're experiencing a hardship in that moment, how do I find the lesson? Shifting right into that space of, where's the gift here? Where's the lesson? What is this teaching me? How is this here to serve me? And by moving into that mind frame about whatever it is that you're faced with, it taps you into a different dimension of possibility. It taps you into a realm where you start searching for the hidden jewels or the hidden gifts in the situation. And what you search for, you find. This is like the hairdresser that always sees everyone's hair, or the shoe shiner that always sees how everyone's shoes are. Wherever your mind is focused, you start seeing that. So whatever you're looking for, you start finding evidence for. And I'm sure everybody has experienced this before, where when your mind is thinking about something that it hadn't thought of in a long time, all of a sudden you start noticing it in all these different places. It's like the first time you learn a new word, and then all of a sudden you start hearing the word everywhere because you were tuning it out before. It's actually something called the reticular activation system. And it's the reticular activating system, I think it is. But it's a function of your consciousness that tunes out things that you've deemed unimportant and notices the things that you have deemed important. So when you start deeming important the lessons that you learn from hardships, when you're faced with a hardship, you start looking for the lessons. And it becomes much easier to stay optimistic, because when a hardship arises, you realize there's a deeper lesson in it. And you realize there's a lesson in it that's deeper because you can remember in your past all those hardships you've been through, and then all the valuable lessons that you learned from those hardships. And so the more you think about that and remember how every hardship you've been through in your life yielded a fruit in the future, then you can have more faith in the moment when something comes up that you're resisting, when something comes up that you don't want to accept, that you have a fruit waiting for you. It's just a matter of being able to decode that and figure out what the fruit is. And that the longer that you resist it in that moment, the longer you're resisting the fruit from coming forward. And if you pass through the situation and start identifying yourself as a victim because that shouldn't have happened and it should have been another way, you're blocking yourself off from the gift that situation has to offer you. So this mind frame, this technique has been one of the most powerful techniques that I've used to be able to dissolve resistance in my everyday life. Because let's be honest, the more we're resistant to our reality, the less capable we are of handling our reality, the less capable we are of excelling and thriving in our reality, because we're trying to fight something that's an impossible fight. But the second we can say, you know what, this is cool. Whatever's happening, it may be uncomfortable, but it's for my greatest good. The universe is working to create a situation that will help me grow. It will help me expand in some way. It'll help me rise to the occasion. If everything was easy all the time, if everything was happening as I wanted it to happen, I'd become stagnant. I wouldn't grow at all. It's these hardships that help us grow. So if we switch our mentality to be excited to grow when a hardship arises, then that's the very fuel that not only gives us the ability to navigate through that hardship with grace and beauty, but it gives us the ability to accelerate our growth process. Because every time we're faced with something difficult, we rise to the occasion, we move into it with enthusiasm, and what we'll find is oftentimes everything just dissolves around it, and then we're grateful that it happened. So that traffic, we're stuck in traffic, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna miss this appointment, like this is like so crappy. And we may think that we know that we're supposed to be at that appointment, but honestly, we don't know. And in fact, if we stay open to this being a gift, then what we'll often find is that we will create a gift out of it. Meaning, maybe we're stuck in traffic, so we look on our iPhone and we're inspired by a certain quote that puts us in a mind state that starts thinking in a different way. And then on the way to the meeting, maybe we miss it, but we run into another person and we share that quote with them, and that starts a conversation. And this person happens to be a better contact than the so-called interview or whatever that we were going to, the appointment that we were going to. So it's this kind of mentality that brings us into the dimension where these miracles can happen, where things where powerful, beautiful things can come out of circumstances that seemed like a misfortune, that seemed like a struggle. And presence, what I talked about in one of the last videos that I made, this ties so deeply into this practice of being able to dissolve our resistance, because presence gives us the ability to let go and disidentify with the thought patterns and the emotional patterns that are associated with the resistance or the judgments or whatever it is that is causing that tension and that recoiling from life. So I encourage you to take a look at your past. Think about all those times that you had an experience that was a hardship, something that you resisted, something you felt a victim for, that once you overcame it and extracted the lesson from, became a valuable lesson that you would never give back. Those things that at first felt like the world was ending and everything was crumbling and you would do anything to prevent from happening, but after it was over, maybe it was a breakup, maybe it was losing a job, but after it was over, you felt like you grew so much from it. And then you started loving that you had that experience because it taught you so much. And use those experiences as the fuel to help you come to the belief or the understanding that the world is here to help you, that life works, and that since life works, whenever you're faced with the hardship, there's a gift on the other end of that. It's just a matter of being able to tune your consciousness to the awareness that is looking for the gift. So it's stripping the disguise off of the blessing. So thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Haize, and I'll talk to you guys next time. If you liked the video you just saw and you want to support me in bringing more content like that to you, donate to my Patreon page. There's a link pinned in the comments below, and when you donate to the page, you get access to all sorts of cool giveaways, like exclusive content, free music downloads, monthly group chats with me, and more. Now, every single donation that comes in goes directly to improving the quality and the quantity of my content. So thanks so much for your support, and I'll see you on the flip side.